Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three amazing guests today to answer this question. How do you balance pushing for results with protecting well-being and boundaries? And I look forward to hearing all of your responses. But first, let me do a quick intro to the guests we have on today, beginning with Kelsey Peak. Kelsey is a passionate and results-driven learning and development professional that is dedicated to driving organizational success through innovative talent development strategies and programs. As a licensed leadership architect and having her master's in professional and organizational communication, she specializes in designing and implementing impactful training initiatives to foster growth and improve performance. Kelsey Waldrop, founder, executive coach, and speaker. Kelsey leads her business Potential on Point, empowering leaders as they navigate career and business challenges and opportunities to achieve elevated personal and professional success. She is an ICF recognized professional coach and the host of the podcast LaidOff.LifeOn. And finally, Alani Bankhead, professional leadership coach and consultant and owner of Mighty Sparrow Coaching. Alani is a PCC offering one-on-one coaching, helping individuals overcome imposter syndrome and self-doubt. She also contracts with government and private entities to coach their people to achieving better mission results. Alani is in her 21st year of active duty in the United States Air Force. Thank you, Alani, for your service. Let's get started, ladies. And just as a reminder, the question today: how do you balance pushing for results with protecting well-being and boundaries? Kelsey, what would you say about that?
Well, it does seem like we're balancing on a tightrope between productivity and well-being, right? But the thing is that it's not just about balance. It's about rethinking what it even means to be productive. So I was recently in a presentation by Tasha Urich. Are you guys familiar with Tasha?
Yeah. Lots of
Yeah.
burnout work, right?
Yes. And she was talking about becoming shatterproof. She talked about how resilience isn't about powering through or being unbreakable. It's about how we bend and how we integrate what's happening to us into something that we can grow from. So I think it really reframes this question of how to balance pushing for results and protecting well-being and boundaries, right? So there's this cultural myth that the grind equals results. So imagine you're digging a hole and you've got one person digging this hole and you're trying to get them to dig faster or make a bigger hole. Or you add a couple extra people so that you can dig a bigger hole faster, right? But it's not about making progress by digging faster. It's about how you reward the productivity. So it's not about coming in under budget and on time. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten, right? Yeah. So when what we actually need is creativity, innovation, problem solving, and collaboration. So we need space to ask the hard questions, like, why are we digging the hole?
Right.
Do we even need to dig a hole? So you don't get that from the grind, right? You get that from clarifying and the best ideas actually. So this is kind of a funny thing, but they tell you that the best ideas come from when you're in the shower, right?
Right.
And it's not because you got this magic water washing over you. It's not because you're washing off the grime from digging that hole. It's because you've given yourself the space to actually think about something. And so the question is, do you want short-term output or long-term brilliance? So
Yeah.
I think it's about reframing.
Yeah. I love it. I had a guy tell me a long time ago, if you have to sacrifice your sanity for the scoreboard, you're playing the wrong game. Right.
Like that.
And so I think, your point about creativity and then following that up with that's not in the grind, right? It's hard to tap that when we're just, nose down and can't see anything but the tunnel vision that it's creating. I love it. Let's jump over to Kelsey. Kelsey, what would you add to that?
Yeah, well, I would add when I blow dry my hair is when all of my brilliant thoughts come. So I have a notebook next to my blow dryer because it's so spot on. So, the space for clarity that's very real. So that hit home for me for sure. And I'm just going to build on the idea of reframe because there's some assumptions built into the question itself, right? So how do you balance results with well-being and boundaries, which says that there's tension. So if you kind of think about this, that like they're at tug of war. I can either be well, I can either, have boundaries, or I can have production. It puts the two at odds. Well, now you're in a tug of war, whichever one you're giving energy to, the other one's laying flat down in a pile of mud, destroyed. So if we put the rope down and we say, what about if these can coexist? What about if they are not mutually exclusive, but they're actually multipliers of one another? So if you think about professional athletes, right? Professional athletes have days of rest. Game day, Sunday. Every Sunday, any given Sunday, there's football games going on, right? They're not playing full pads on Saturday. They're not going, full hits. They're flying in on a Thursday. They're resting. Their curfews are in place and well, reinforced, and they're strategizing. But they're not playing the full game before the game itself. They are taking care of their well-being in order to perform the following day. So therefore, well-being becomes an amplifier for that success and for that performance. And the same is true of business leaders. If you read Jeff Bezos, Michelle Obama, Warren Buffett, they all will say, I sleep 8 to 10 hours a week, or 8 hours a night. Very, very important clarification. 8 to 10 hours a night, right? Because they know that clarity, rest, mind-body connection is very real. They have reached a pinnacle of success because they put boundaries in place, which honored their well-being. And so this whole idea that they're reinforcing of one another is like absolutely essential. And here's the part that like we really don't want to hear. After about age 35, like we kind of start to decline mentally, physically. The things that gave us an edge in our 20s, the work all night, I can, do anything that it takes, it's no longer our edge. So the edge that comes a little bit as we mature in our lives and in leadership is the wisdom to know well-being multiplies performance. And that becomes the edge, the ability to lean into that. And so if we embrace this truth that performance is not independent of well-being, that they're interconnected, then all of a sudden we're winning a long game. It's not about the short term, what am I doing today? Am I performing well or am I taking care of myself? We're playing a bigger game, a longer strategy. We have more success and we're more well rested. So to me, that's kind of the frame.
I love it. And it's not an either or, right? And I love the analogy with professional athletes. As you know, we worked with them back in 2012, and the recovery and refuel piece is as much of a part of any of the hard work, right? Or the grind is Casey, as you referred to it, right? When you think about them, doing drills and training and all of those kind of things. Huge part. Awesome, Kelsey. Alani, let's jump over to you. Bring us home. What would you add to these two great responses right here?
Well, actually, I'm just going to continue on the reframe train because I agree with you 100% that it's not an either or. You can actually overlap results with well-being and boundaries. And actually, the question, I really appreciated the way that you asked it, Kyle, right? So the question was, how do you balance pushing for results with protecting well-being and boundaries? And that is a typical question that we get day to day. But I think what you're actually asking is, how do people get to thriving, which is the overlap of that results and the well-being, right? Which is what everybody wants. So my background is actually in the justice system. So I'm a career human trafficker hunter, terrorist hunter, spy hunter. These are life and death situations. So for me, back in the day, I would constantly bust my own boundaries and my well-being because the thought was I have to get the results in protecting kids, right? If I'm not doing the work, if I'm not sacrificing all of me, kids are dying, kids are being abused, and that pushed me to that burnout. And that happened several times, right? So when we take ourselves out of the survival and the scarcity mindset, and you get to what does thriving look like? The first question to ask is, what is my purpose for existing, right? Because you weren't born to just check items off your to-do list and die. You were, I believe, born to thrive. So for me, my purpose is uplifting and supporting and protecting life. Like, I love life. And when I think about that, I think every day, because I only have today, right? Every day, I'm just focusing on what do I have to do today to protect and uplift life. And the second part is the emotions drive the behaviors. So when I ask myself that question, there are times when I need to go hard, right? Our operations, so our like to catch a predator type operations or the human trafficking operations we do, will go till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. They will go weekends, holidays, but that doesn't feel like sacrifice to us because that is how we're built. We thrive in those spaces because we have great plans. Our love for the community is at the forefront of what we do. But when I'm done, I'm not telling myself I have to be in the office Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I'm telling myself I'm taking Monday and Tuesday off because I just worked all weekend, right? I'm listening to my body, and that is where the well-being and the boundaries come in. And that's where the emotions are really powerful indicators in telling you what you need to do and not do, when you need to push and when you need to pull back. Now, the hard part is our inner dialogue is always telling us, no, you have to do more, because that's what society, especially Western society, tells us, is it's all about achievement and all that stuff. But I think we all inherently understand, especially in 2025, it's really not about that to-do list. It's about, when I look back on my life, when I'm laying on my deathbed, what am I most proudest of? What brought me the most joy? Where did I have the most impact?
Yeah, I love it. I love the simplest thing I think you said was, I love life, right? If more people would really just own that and elevate, and so much of what you're talking about is really elevating your personal awareness around all of those pieces, right? Mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, all of it. So powerful. All right. Tell me about a time or a moment maybe that you didn't get the balance right, and what did you learn from that? Maybe
Well,
a moment.
I got plenty of those,
I
but
was gonna say,
right.
I'm like, let me check the archives real quick.
yeah, my most recent one. So I left W-2 work in 2022, and I was the deputy commander for all child exploitation operations in the Pacific Ocean. And I was 2 years of burnout in a hellhole of PTSD and anxiety and all the craziness.
Wow.
But at the same time, it was such a gift because I knew inherently, I was like, I gave too much of myself. I knew better and I did it anyway. And so it's just been an opportunity to build in those new wellness mindsets so that that doesn't happen again, because it's never going to happen again, because I don't want to be out of the fight, right? That's the goal, is you don't ever want to be out of the fight. So
Yeah. So real quick on that, you mentioned wellness mindsets. And so when people that aren't in that realm, don't operate in those high stakes, high pressure environments like you have, Alani, I think there's an assumption that because you're exposed to those things, that you have some special training, or you have some mind power and control over how you switch gears so quickly. So what would you say to somebody that's watching, in the most pressure they've ever been under is working a 60-hour work week and trying to feed 2 kids at home, right? But they're burned out too. And so your burnout's not better than theirs necessarily. It's just how they're experiencing it. When you say the mental wellness or those types of things, what would you say?
So you're right. Comparison is the thief of joy, and everybody's built differently. Everybody has a different capacity to carry different things. Parents, I think, have some of the hardest jobs. Social workers, medical professionals, I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm mad respect. I could never do what you do, right? But when I talk about being deployed and getting shot at and bombed, people are like, that's crazy. But I was built for that. Like, that part doesn't freak me out, right? But ultimately, I think what you're saying is know yourself, right? So I always think of Bill Belichick. Like, I mean, I think we know Tom Brady was the man, right? But Bill's big contribution to the Patriots was do your job. And that means knowing what your purpose is and only doing that every day. So part of the burnout comes from trying to do all these other things that you're really not called to do. So the more awareness that you have around what is my gift to the world and what I give today is enough. That's what I would say to somebody who's just starting on this journey. Like, what's your purpose? And most people don't know, right? What's your purpose? And what is one tiny way I can just align myself to that? And hint, hint, it's going to be scary. Because most people are doing what the world tells them to do, not what's really in their hearts. So if you feel that fear, but you're like, oh my God, that could be amazing, you're right on track.
Yeah. What they say, if it excites you and scares the crap out of you, you got to do it.
That's right.
Love it. Casey, what would you add?
I would say, and I think this is probably pretty unusual, I have not had a lot of overwhelm moments in my career. I have always been very careful to, I'm an artist, so I take the time every week to sit in front of my easel or my craft table or whatever I'm working on and just take that time that I need. I shut off all music, all TV, all news, I shut off everything and I focus on my art. So
I love that. So where do you think that level of discipline just kind of was integrated into who you are?
um childhood. I
Yeah.
really do think it is my mom was a freelance sign language interpreter. And
Huh.
so she handled her own schedule. And she was always very careful to make sure that she set aside time for us, set aside time for us to do fun things together, set aside time for us to do chores and those sorts of things. So it was very rigorous, but very regimented.
Yeah. So the structure in a lot of ways sounds like it helped you and you kind of knew when you could check in and check out.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
fantastic. Kelsey, what would you add?
Yeah, for sure. My kids came home with one of those signs, like, for Mother's Day. And they said, my mom's favorite thing to say is, and they said, hurry up, it's time to go. So I don't think I provided my children with the same structure that you provided your children with, but I am working on it because burnout is it's something very real. I'm a hyperachiever, I'm a hyper driver. So are most of my clients. So are all of my clients. So burnout is very, very, very real. And the stories that we tell ourselves about what it takes to be successful, how much we have to take on, is a daily conversation that I have. So I'll just say a couple of things, which is one, thinking about asking others for help versus empowering others with opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. Most of us are givers. That's why we're hyperachievers. We want to do more. And the assumption that we can do more for others instead of helping them do more is a fundamental shift that all of a sudden we are both giving and we're empowering somebody else to do something that they couldn't do without our support. And so I think that's kind of been an important framework for a lot of my clients that really resonates. Alani, you talked about strengths, like knowing your strengths. So I think, part of us that tend to gravitate towards burnout, knowing what our strengths are and how to leverage those in those moments. So how do I take this hyperdriver personality of mine and put it to good use? It can sabotage me or it can help me if purposed, and pointed in the right direction. And so I think really tapping into whatever our strengths are, looking at whatever it is that we're struggling with and saying, how might I use this as a strength? What do I know about myself that I can tap into? Each individual is different. The reasons we're hyperdrivers, hyperachievers, prone to burnout is distinct. It's unique. It's individual to us, which also means the solution is unique and individual to us. But it's that awareness, it's the conversations, and it's about sometimes looking at things that we see as a challenge as the opportunity. Where's the gift?
Yeah. Yeah. So good. I think anytime the conversation around burnout comes up, we kind of always jump back into the example on the airplane, right? When the oxygen mask drops, there's a reason they tell to put it on yourself first. And we don't always apply that to life. And I was actually we've been doing a couple of special episodes of Inspired Actions for Christian education. And one of the young men was talking about how leadership isn't about pouring from one cup to another. If you really think about it, it's about pouring from one cup to a pipe system that then feeds other cups. And so since we know we can't pour from an empty cup, if we take that on and say, we've got to keep our cup full, because we're not just feeding the one cup that we think we're pouring into, it's got to flow through to a lot of other people, right?
Yeah, that's so good. Kyle, can I offer an unpopular opinion?
Yeah, sure.
So I love this conversation. And, but earlier we were actually talking about the Texas floods, and that is an awful tragedy. And to Kelsey's point, people are givers. Like, they want to give and give and give, right? But for me, I know that my purpose is in protecting and uplifting life as it relates to the justice system, even though my well-intendedness wants to go help the Texas flood survivors in that whole situation. That's not what I'm called to, right? And so, people might look at me and think I'm a bad person for saying that, but the point is, I understand the boundaries I have around what I'm here to do. And there's someone else that is a flood specialist who they're unleashing their greatest gifts on that space, right? But the point is, if we all know our role and offer that gift up to the community, we cover each other's weaknesses with our strengths and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's having the confidence to stand in those boundaries. And I think a lot of times that's where we see resistance from other people, because they may not have the same ability to do that. Yeah. I appreciate you offering that. All right, ladies. Great stuff. Thank y'all so much. That's all the time we've got for this episode. Be sure to join us every Thursday on LinkedIn, noon Central, and then anytime on the @MindFit Coaching YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in for a new episode every week. Thanks, you guys. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.